Hi, this is Stacy. Today I wanted to talk to you about how to tab your solid tumor rules manual in preparation for the STR exam. Now this is kind of the beast of all the manuals because of its large size and excessive content. But we'll go through chapter by chapter and I'll show you how to tab each chapter specifically. This manual in particular, I only got printed out on one side per page because it's landscape instead of portrait printed. So I just thought it was easier to do it one side per page. I put it all in, I think, a 4-inch binder, which was the biggest one I could find. You're also going to need these tabs. And the thing with these tabs is that there's so much to tab, I did cut them lengthwise. So go ahead and get those prepped for yourself and just cut a bunch of different colors lengthwise. So you're going to need your scissors to do that. And then you're going to need a pen in order to write the different tabbing.
Now, when I took my test, I was using the 2018 solid tumor rules. I know this manual has been updated in 2023, so make sure that you're using the appropriate manual for your test. So for this first section, I tabbed the instructions, which kind of gives you an overview on how to use the manual. It's important that you become familiar with how to use the manual before you take your test, but these are just some good reminders, and I went through and I kind of highlighted different things that I thought that I needed to remember for the test. I also tabbed this section with ambiguous terminology so that I would remember what terms constituted a diagnosis. The first chapter in this manual is the breast chapter. So this is the first of 10 chapters. All of the chapters are kind of laid out in a similar way, which start with an introduction. They talk about the changes that were made, the equivalent terms, terms that are not equivalent, and then it kind of goes into the meat of the manual. I did tab the site section, and this section will give you the specific terms that correspond to that particular site and the C code. This is a couple pages long, but it is important for determining site and C code. The next section I tabbed was Table 2, and this is the histology combination codes. The tables that are tabbed kind of function as a jump link, because the multiple primary rules and the histology rules in each chapter often reference the tables. So you want to make sure that you have a jump code or a jump tab for each of those sections. So I've tabbed Table 2 and Table 3. And Table 3 is the specific histologies, subtypes, and variants. I did also tab the clock of the breast chapter, and I highlighted right breast and left breast, and this just gives you the clock positions for the quadrants and the codes of the breast. And then of course you have your primary site rules, which are tabbed, and the histology rules, which are tabbed. The next section that I tabbed is the colon chapter. Again, it goes over the introduction, the changes from the prior manual, equivalent terms, terms that are not equivalent, and then you come to Table 1, which is your jump link for this chapter. This chapter also had a nice page for histologies that are not reportable, so I tabbed that. And I also tabbed this page with the colonoscopy measurements, because sometimes your pathology reports will give you measurements and not the exact term for the part of the colon. So I just thought that this was a really helpful page that would come in handy. And then of course, again, you have your multiple primary rules and the histology rules. So hopefully by now you're kind of seeing a pattern on how each of these chapters is laid out. Now this chapter
has a lot of different subchapters, and it's got a lot of tables 1 through 10. And so instead of tabbing each of those tables, I wrote along the side what page I could find that table on. So this kind of acts as my table of contents for the head and neck chapter, or, it's called the table index. So if I was abstracting a tumor of, say, the ear, C301, I would want table 8, which I've noted is on page 121. And then you can go through and label each table, and that's how I kind of referenced each of these specific sites. And then after that, of course, you have your multiple primary rules and then your histology rules. Next up is the kidney chapter. So I've tabbed the front of the kidney chapter. I've got my jump link for table 1, which is specific histologies and subtypes variants. I've also tabbed the page that lists neoplasms which are not reportable, and then multiple primary rules and histology rules. Now this is the point in the manual where I had to tab along the bottom because I used up all my side space. So we've come to the lung chapter. I tabbed the sites page, which gives you a good description of the terminology of the lung, the laterality, and then the site code and the term. I jump linked table 2, which is combination and mixed histology codes, and table 3, which is specific histologies and subtype variants. And then again, you have the multiple primary rules and the histology rules. All right, we are halfway through the manual. Next chapter is the malignant CNS and peripheral nerves chapter. I did tab the reportability criteria, and I underlined that CNS neoplasms must meet all 3 of the conditions in order to be reported as malignant, because there's also a non-malignant CNS chapter, so you need to keep that in mind. This chapter also has one of those fancy index pages. So again, instead of tabbing each of these, I just wrote next to each section what page I could find them on. And then you have your multiple primary rules and your histology rules. Next up is the non-malignant CNS chapter. I did highlight note 4, just noting that, these are reportable for cases diagnosed January 1st of 2004 and later. So make sure you keep that in mind. This chapter, again, also has an index of the sections and tables, which I wrote down the corresponding page numbers for. So it's very helpful, so you can just quickly look at your index instead of tabbing each of those tables. I also tabbed histologies that were not reportable. And then again, multiple primary rules and the histology rules. We are now up to the urinary sites chapter. So I tabbed the sites page, which is table 1, which gives you the terms and the synonyms and the corresponding C codes. I tabbed table 2 as a jump link, which gives you your histology codes. I tabbed table 3, which are your non-reportable urinary tumors. And then again, multiple primary rules and histology rules. We are now up to the cutaneous melanoma chapter. The introductory page, I made a little note that this scheme is used only for melanomas that occur on the skin. I then also tabbed Table 1, which is the sites table. This gives you the terminology, the site code, and the C code. I also tabbed Table 2, which gives you your histologies. I tabbed the terms that were not reportable. And then multiple primary rules and histology rules. All right, we are at the final chapter. You made it. This is the other sites chapter, which includes things like prostate and GYN malignancies. For this chapter, I tabbed Table 1, which is paired organs and sites with laterality. Table 2, which is your jump link for mixed and combination histology codes. And then your multiple primary rules and your histology rules. That was a beast of a manual, wasn't it? Hopefully you survived and you've got everything all tabbed appropriately and you are ready for your test. If you have any comments, leave them in the comments section. Otherwise, I hope this video has helped you and good luck on your test.